It is Locked On Jazz for the 8th of February, 2 days to the NBA trade deadline. And the most boring move by the Utah Jazz is probably the right one. The New York Knicks came to town and the Jazz played with a joy, a zest, and the youngsters came through for a big-time win. And how are we? I don't know. It's all coming up on today's edition of Locked On Jazz. Pow.
You are Locked On Jazz, your daily podcast on the Utah Jazz. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
I'm David Locke, radio voice of the Utah Jazz, Jazz NBA insider, and this is Locked On Jazz, your daily podcast on the Utah Jazz, giving you insight, expertise, geeky numbers, and hopefully making it way better to be a Jazz fan each and every day. Thank you very much for making Locked On Jazz your first listen of the day. We are free and available for you on all platforms. Special hello to the live crew that is with us, Brandon and Yorgis and JJ and Paul and Tyler and Keith and Lacey and Michael and Jace and Lee and Adam and Bryce. And I'll say hi to Ray because she'll be here eventually. All right. We'll get to why the most boring move for the Utah Jazz at the trade deadline is the right move in a moment. But let's go back to last night. Good, solid win. The Knicks have lost 9 of 11 and are desperately without a point guard, and it's obvious. And the Jazz were able to take advantage of it. They're a bad clutch team, 21st in the league. Bad half-court team, 24th in the league. And the Jazz took advantage of all those things late in the game. And if it wasn't for the Knicks' incredible offensive rebounding, that game wouldn't have been that close. The most fun part about last night was how great Donovan was. But Donovan's really actually been this great for a while. If we stem back, I mean, I was looking at today. I don't know if we forgot somewhere, but let's go to the 20 games before he got a concussion. He was averaging 29 points a game, 3 rebounds, 5 assists, 48% from the field, and 37% from 3, while going to the line 5 times a game, which is a lot. So the 20 games before he gets concussed in LA goes 0 for 8, 6 of 18. Take that game out. The 20 games before that, he's averaging 29 points a game, 3 rebounds, and 5 assists, shooting 48% from the field and 37% from 3. Now, were we as energetic as we needed to be in all those games? No, probably not. Were we as defensively minded in all those games as we need to be great? Probably not. But we were pretty good. Like, let's not, in those 20 games, I believe we went 15-5. Maybe 14-6. Pretty good. Hard, lost to the Spurs and the Wizards along the way, and games that weren't great to lose. Lost to Golden State in a game that probably wasn't great to lose. Bad loss to Indiana, Detroit, and Cleveland, all without Rudy Gobert. So Donovan, the mantra, and I think there's something to it. Donovan played with a zest and a joy and a happiness, and he windmill dunked, and everyone feels good about it. But really, all he's done is picked up exactly where he left off. In his 2 games back, he's averaging 29 points, 5 rebounds, and 6 assists a game, shooting, at ridiculously high levels. The dude's just great. In the midst of all of the things that have been going on all season long, the item we may have forgotten most importantly about is the way you win in this league is having a flippin' star. And our stars have gotten so much better this year. Now, hey, did we as a group lack a zest? And did we as a group lack some sort of connectivity? And did we as a group lack a level of we didn't look like we were having a great time, right? We didn't have that. Yes, 100%. But there's the chance, the thing that's so funny to me, there's a chance about this is that for all the last few years, what we've had happen to the Jazz is that they play the regular season at this incredible tenacity all season long. We get to the playoffs, everybody else brings up their next level of juice, and we're like still at our same level. So we're here all season long, and the Clippers and the Lakers and everybody else are playing here, and the Nuggets. And then we get to the playoffs, and they come up to here. We're like, oh crap! There's a chance we're this team this year. That we're the team who kind of slept, is going to get all sleepwalk and deal with our personal issues throughout the whole season, and kind of have our like lack of connectivity and be kind of funky and weird, and then boom, because you can kind of see it. I mean, Quinn Snyder's been asking for one thing out of this group for the last month, and that's energy. And he's gotten it now out of Trent Forrest and Eric Paschall and a little bit out of Jared Butler and out of Udoka Azubuike. And now, are they playoff players? I don't know, but I'm pretty certain I'm getting energy out of Jordan Clarkson in the playoffs. So on Whiteside, bag of chocolates. But when he's good, he's really good. So I think that's, worth kind of thinking about. I'll get into it a little bit more in the third segment today. But Donovan's just been great. I mean, he's the number one pick and roll player in the league this year. I don't know if he still is, but he and Rudy are the number one combination. He's right there, number one. He's just unstoppable. He was 21 points in the first half. He was just brilliant. So, yeah, I hear it. I buy it. I said it too. Like, he played with a little zest. He's been brilliant for a long time here. And I don't think we don't need to redo the narrative. I think we've forgotten maybe how great he was for the last 20 games. Even as the All-Star game came around, I found myself wondering if he was going to get bumped. And I looked back and I was like, he can't get bumped. The dude's just a bona fide star. So, I think that's important. All right, I thought so the game last night has two kind of stretches that are amazing. One is that we suddenly just go ice cold in the third quarter, lose a 10-point lead, and suddenly are down by 10 on a 23-2 run by the Knicks. And then the other one is we hit the 5-minute mark. Alec Burks scores, and then the Knicks don't score again for 4 minutes. And Udoka Azubuike is on the floor during that stretch. And that's pretty exciting. And Azubuike, he's got to just give him credit. He's played almost none. Almost none. And when he has played, frankly, the kid out of Lagos, Nigeria, who, is big and strong and jumps out of the gym, has looked like a fish out of water. There have been times this year where he looks, astronomically disconnected to the NBA game. And yet now, in 3 games, he's done well. The first one is against Zeke Naji in Denver. Same draft class. Makes total sense. It wasn't that much different than a G League matchup for him. Okay. The second one against Brooklyn, Claxton gets hurt. Doesn't play much of that game. I think like 10 minutes. He actually doesn't look great in the minutes against Claxton, who's not that good. And for an NBA player, I always think we should clarify that really, really quickly when we make those comments like that. Oh, he's not that good. Like, oh, yeah, right. He's an NBA player. But Claxton plays 5 minutes in that game. It's pretty hard to tell. And then the rest of the time, they don't have a center. They're playing Sharp. Some of the time, who's a center, actually has 11 points and 8 rebounds in that game. He's a late second round draft. Like, those 2 games to me I didn't leave those. I thought Doak played really well, and I was happy for him. But as a Jazz fan, I didn't leave either of those 2 games thinking to myself, like, oh, Udoka Azubuike's got a chance. And in the fact of the matter is, for the first 36 minutes of this game, I'll be perfectly honest, this reminded me that I didn't think he did have a chance. Like, I thought his inability to garner a defensive rebound in this game was so significant to the path of the game that anything else he did well to me was kind of overshadowed. And then in the fourth quarter, in the most important part of the game, he made these plays. And those have to be just massive, incredible, amazing confidence builders for him. Amazing confidence builders for him. And so that is just super cool to see him make those plays and have that confidence and feel that and be a part of wins like this. And that's got to vault him forward. I don't know, is he a backup center for his career? Is he a starting center? Hey, frankly, we've talked about this on Locked On a ton here, and that is the fact that these big men are more important than ever before, and he made a bunch of plays, right? And if he can dunk 3 times a night, it matters. So I thought that was pretty cool. Let me run through the numbers a little bit last night, and then I've got a bunch of other stuff. I have too much stuff for the show today. First quarter offensive ratings on each side was a dead even 112. We were tied. When Mitchell Robinson was on the floor for the 7:23 of the 7:25, Mitchell Robinson guarded 50% of all available rebounds on the offensive glass. So when the Knicks missed, the rebound went to the Jazz. No, actually, the Jazz less because Evan Fournier had an offensive rebound too. Went to Mitchell Robinson when let's just pretend that there weren't any other offensive rebounds because this is just wild. In the 7:25 that Mitchell Robinson was on the floor, if the Knicks missed, Mitchell Robinson and the Jazz had the same chance of getting a rebound. Crazy. Udoka Azubuike in his first 5 minutes had a defensive rebounding rate of 14%. If everybody on the floor had an equal chance for a defensive rebound, it'd be 10%. If you're a center, you should be in the 20%. Hassan Whiteside came in the game. Mitchell Robinson left for some of it. His defensive rebounding rate was 56% of all defensive rebounds he got in that quarter. Okay, so really big difference. So that was really problematic. The Jazz offensive rating with Udoka on the floor in the first quarter was an 82. Their defensive rating was a 136. Like it just wasn't good. And then we moved to the second quarter, and the rebounding issues continue as the Knicks got 47% of their offensive rebounds in that quarter. Incredible. The Jazz just could not clear the glass, and it was everyone at that point. But in the 5.5 minutes that Doak played the second quarter, he did not get a defensive rebound. His defensive rebounding rate was a 0. Now, defensively, we were pretty good with him on the floor in that. I'm not picking on him. I'm actually telling a story here that's positive. In the third quarter, they do it again. Their offensive rebounding rate is 56%. Doak's on the floor for 9 minutes. His defensive rebounding rate is 14%. He's a pretty good offensive rebounder. I'll explain why I think the difference is. And then in the fourth quarter, with the game on the line, in the final 5 minutes of the game, this kid comes on the floor and somehow figures it out. Mitchell Robinson and the Knicks get like a offensive rebound in that stretch. Doak has a 39% defensive rebounding rate in the fourth quarter. Like and the defensive rating when Doak was on the floor in the final 8 minutes of the fourth quarter was a 56. Hassan Whiteside fouled out, lasted 21 minutes. I mean, he's got to be like on a night where there's no Rudy Gobert. If you're going to rely on Hassan Whiteside, you've got to believe he can play more than 20 minutes without fouling out. But Udoka Azubuike in 8 minutes of the fourth quarter has a defensive rating of a 56 and defensive rebounding rate of 39%. That is awesome. That's really cool. And he grabbed 3 big rebounds, one off an air ball, a few others. It was super. I've got a theory on why the offensive rebounding and defensive rebounding discrepancy for Doak. I want to talk about Mike Conley's leadership. I want to talk about, and then I want to talk about why the most boring move is actually the right move for the Utah Jazz. That's all. Continue. Today's Tuesday edition of Locked on Jazz is brought to you by my friends over at Murdoch Hyundai, located at 4646 South State Street, also located in Logan and in Linden. The Murdochs are incredible people. They've been in Utah for 90 years. They're part of our soul and our culture and who we are and why? Because, and a great example of this is that they're simply not going to gouge you for with the car shortage that's going on right now. They're going to keep nothing over MSRP. Now, over at Murdoch Hyundai, cars are coming in, but most of them are sold before they get in. So let's get you over to the dealership, get you a meeting, a VIP meeting, have you look at some cars, figure out what you're most interested in, and then have it ready for you as it's coming in to the dealerships. That's located at 4646 South State Street. Bryce, did that just happen? Is that what you're telling me in the chat room? 4646 South State Street, also located in Logan and in Linden. So check it all out. And if you want to stop by and get a VIP treatment, email me first at dlock09@gmail.com. dlock09@gmail.com. Oh, it's tax time. It's right around the corner. We all know it's there. So let's talk TurboTax, because people think unusual circumstances mean complicated taxes. But TurboTax Live experts, that's what's here for, is those interesting, unique lives that invested in crypto, that have an up-and-coming small business, that raised rambunctious twins, that did whatever it might be on this wild year of taxes Trust me. Luckily, TurboTax Live has experts who can answer your questions, walk you through the whole process, do your taxes for you from start to finish. They help you in every deduction you deserve, no matter your unique situation, and you can talk to the TurboTax Live experts through your phone or computer without leaving your house. TurboTax Live experts are here to help you however you need, and if you need an extra hand your taxes off to them, and they'll do it all for you. TurboTax Live experts. An interesting life can mean even greater refunds. You do your thing, you get your tax. They've got your taxes into its TurboTax Live. Oh, yep, that's it. Let's see what did Bryce just say. Did that CJ McCollum to the Pelicans just happened? Really? Let's check this trade in real time. All right, let's see. Quick little scan here. CJ McCollum from the New Orleans Pelicans are sending Josh Hart, Thomas Satoransky, Nickeil Alexander-Walker, and Didi Udoka. So the Pelicans are also sending a protected first-round pick and 2 second-round picks to Portland. So Portland got Nickeil Alexander-Walker, who's like the lowest points game player we have in the whole league. And a first-round pick for CJ McCollum that's protected 5 to 14 this year. If it doesn't convey, the first-rounder kicks to the future for the Blazers. Portland is also sending Larry Nance Jr. and Tony Snell to New Orleans. Well, the Blazers have broken this baby up. They're clearing as much max cap space as they can, I guess, holding on to Dame and seeing if they can get pretty interesting. So here's the thing from a Jazz standpoint, just my quick take on a Jazz standpoint. I think it's irrelevant. Generally, I'm not the biggest CJ McCollum fan, so I don't think it pushes New Orleans like over the top in some way to have McCollum and Brandon Ingram. And I don't think that it has a massive impact on New Orleans getting way better is my first reaction on that. CJ doesn't move my meter like that. They didn't give up much, so they got Larry Nance Jr., who actually is probably I'm a huge fan of for no particular reason this year, but I was in the offseason. So, all right, so the Pelicans got better immediately because they have Nance and CJ McCollum. From a Jazz standpoint, the question is whether Josh Hart gets moved again and you have any interest on that standpoint. But otherwise, and Tony Snell, I actually think there's a player was going to get moved during the trade deadline. I was almost certain of it and would have some value to someone. Pelicans now have what? So the Pelicans now are CJ McCollum and Devontae Graham, super small backcourt. Brandon Ingram, Steven Adams, and Larry Nance Jr.? Who am I forgetting on the Pelicans that would be Zion, but when Zion comes back, they're going to, when Zion comes back, the Pelicans are good. But that has nothing to do with this trade. We knew this whole time. Pelicans last night started Herb Jones, Brandon Ingram, Jonas Valanciunas, not Steven Adams, sorry. Hart and Graham. So now they're starting Graham and McCollum. Boy, they're small in the backcourt. Valanciunas is their center, Brandon Ingram, and maybe Larry Nance becomes their power forward, or they keep starting Herb Jones. Doesn't move the meter for me. All right. That wasn't planned. All right. Where was I before so rudely interrupted by a Portland Trailblazer trade? Mike Conley last night joined us postgame, and he had some really interesting comments about, yes, he's taken a larger leadership role. The coaches have been pretty outspoken, both Alex Jensen and Quinn Snyder in press conferences about Mike Conley's increased leadership and how much that's impacted this team. I think this is maybe the most positive sign moving forward because, frankly, I think we have great guys. I think their intentions are all good. I do think they'll be able to get, I do think that they were going to be, get in line and everything was going to. But I think Mike has the ability to probably look at Don and Rudy and Jordan Clarkson and everybody else on this team at his age and his status and be like, hey, shut the beep up. Like, this is my last chance or one of my 2 last chances. Let's go. You may think you're going to have these for the rest of your career because you're so great, but I'm here to tell you I thought it was going to happen for the rest of my career too. And I got to one conference finals and I want to get to another and I want to get to an NBA finals and let's go. And I think Conley has a unique leadership spot, but I don't think that it was prevalent on this team prior to this stretch, because when he came, it was Don's team, it was Rudy's team. And I think he allowed, and both of them have tried to assert their leadership in whatever fashion. And frankly, I'm not sure there's a lot of good 26-year-old leaders in this league. Now Rudy's a little older, but frankly, young guys aren't great leaders in this league. They're trying to figure it out. Young guys aren't great CEOs in the world, right? They aren't super sales managers. There's some having some runs around the block and having some, rings around your tree that allow you to be better at these things. That's not a criticism of either of them. That's just the reality of life. I'm sure that we talk to any NBA player, they're a better leader at 32 than they were at 26, 27. And so Mike has that. He has that understanding. He has that perspective. And I think that's a really important piece to what's happening with the Jazz right now in a positive sense, as they kind of move out of this doldrums. And Mike said it can't get any worse than it was. Can't get any worse. And so I do think we have a larger leadership from Mike Conley than we've had before. All right. Why the right move? This is going to take a little bit. I'm going to do this. Why the right move for the Utah Jazz is the most boring move. Tyler Stone, Joe Ingles last night talked like he had acknowledged that he was about to be traded. Any thoughts? So I don't have any idea on what Joe said last night. Joe openly said that he was really bothered by the trade talk before his injury. He was playing really poorly. In January, he shot 30% from the field and 20% from three and wasn't playing with a lot of energy. So I think he was distracted and bothered. He said as much. He's extension eligible, and we had not extended him. Like, I don't know if that's like saying we're going to trade you, but it is kind of saying, hey, with our luxury tax situation, as much as we like you, we're probably not ready for you to commit to you next season. That's a pretty big statement. And I think you feel that as a player. I've been through multiple contract stuff, so I'm not going to say it doesn't bother me. During the pandemic year, I was my last year of a deal, and I was not comfortable the whole year. And people, I thought were screwing with me. And so, and they were, frankly. And, so that's the same situation. So I can, relate to Joe on that. And so I get where he's coming from. I've been in that situation in my life on much lower numbers and a much different thing without an autistic kid. And I wasn't going to move. I'd just be out of work because I wouldn't have another team. I wasn't going to get traded. I was just going to, my contract was just going to run out. So I get it. Like, I think that's real. Any of us who have that in our lives, I don't think we should expect NBA players just because they make millions to not be bothered by those things. So I get it. And so I think that, I think that's real. And so if he made it sound like he acknowledged he's going to be traded, I think his feeling was, well, if you're not going to extend me and you're not giving me, so you're not offering me for next year, you're clearly doesn't do you a lot of good. You're going to trade me. Let's talk about the boring move is the right move for the Utah Jazz, possibly coming up here in this trade deadline. Today's show is brought to you by Bet Online. How about last night? I think the Jazz were 7.5. That was crazy last night if you're watching that cover. Bet Online is covered, as you covered all this season, with more props, odds, lines than ever before as football continues its march toward the playoffs and the big game. You can get involved. BetOnline.net remains the best spot for all of your sports scores, podcasts, and news this season. And it's not just football. BetOnline has up-to-the-minute info on pro and football, on college hoops, NHL, boxing, UFC, all with live and real-time updates on current games. Don't wait to take advantage of all the new amazing offers available for the 2022 season. It's betonline.net where the game starts. I don't know what there's some good ones tonight. We still I'm just keep watching the Timberwolves and wanting them to lose. That's my fun one right now. Rams, by the way, are at 4, if you're wondering. The favorite Timberwolves are a 5-point favorite tonight against the Sacramento Kings. The Lakers and the Bucks play tonight, which should be fun. Bucks are playing pretty well. Bucks are in a 3.5-point favorite. Nuggets are an 8-point favorite on the Knicks, and I'm backing them back-to-back. I would suspect that's the case. Grizzlies are an 8-point favorite over the Clippers tonight. Wow. And then Phoenix and Philadelphia. So great matchup of NBA games tonight. So the Utah Jazz, if they can get someone to play along, can trade Joe Ingles' contract, probably have to add another contract into it to frankly, Oklahoma City is the place that has the cap room for this. And so the Utah Jazz can make the following trade. And it is truly the most boring trade in the world. It has a penalty to it. It doesn't make us better on the court at all. And it will frustrate every fan. But if the Jazz were to trade Joe Ingles and any of our contracts that are kind of, 1.5 million-esque, I hate using players' names. The Jazz would move themselves below the luxury tax. They would probably have to pull the restrictions on the pick that Oklahoma City has, or at least reduce those restrictions a little bit. So there's a pain, or have to give up a future pick. But let's just talk about this for a second. I know we all want a championship. If the Jazz shop around and cannot find a player that incrementally improves their chance, and I know that Danny Ainge and Justin Zanuck are overturning every rock and doing everything they possibly can to try to make this happen. And let's say they can't get the Harrison Barnes. They can't get the Jeremy Grant. They can't get the player that actually is going to change who we are. And so now you're playing the buyout market, which is hard for Utah, but probably an option this year because we're pretty good. Daniel House, kind of end of the year contract, whatever it might be. Eric Paschall just taking a bigger role. The way the luxury tax works is when you're over the tax from 0 to 5 million, you get, for the 0 to 5 million mark, you get hit at $1.50 over the extra for every dollar you spent. So it's an extra 7.5 million. Then from 5 to 9.9, you get hit at $1.75 and it goes up. That's 8.75 million. From 10 to 14.99, it's $2.50 for every dollar you spent. So that's 12.5. Joe Ingles' contract, and let me make sure here's the key point. The luxury tax is what your salary is calculated based on what your books are at the end of the season, really, so right after the trade deadline. So you can be over the luxury tax the entire season, but if on the last day of the season you somehow get under the tax, then you're not taxed. So we can sit as we are right now at $14 million, $14.5 million over the tax, make a move, get under the tax, and then after the trade deadline, and then we don't pay a luxury tax. Joe Ingles' contract right now to us, Joe Ingles has no value. He cannot play. If the Jazz are able to move Joe Ingles, they would have to add another piece to the puzzle and get under the tax or get on the apron. They would save $30 million. Ryan Smith has so no. 30 million. More importantly, it would get us out of the repeater tax. The repeater tax is anyone that was in the tax 3 of the previous 4 years. We were in last year. If we suddenly get out this year, we can go back in next year, get out the next year. And we're not in 3 of the 4. More importantly, we don't pay the repeater. If we did, we wouldn't pay the repeater until that 5th year. I doubt we're in the tax by then. If we are, Rudy and Donovan were at our peak and we're winning championships because they stayed. If you go into the repeater with the same, just give you just a concept. So right now we're at 14 million over the tax. It's going to cost us cost Ryan about $30 million to have Joe Ingles' contract on the books for the rest of the year with no value. If you were to do that next year, so hey, well, we want to fill in, go up, 44 million. That's what the impact of the repeater tax is. So if the Jazz are unable to get that piece that incrementally improves them toward a championship, or even if it's just like, we're talking Josh Hart because he just got traded. Josh Hart going to finish. I'll put it this way. If we cannot trade for a piece, if Danny Ainge and Justin Zanuck cannot trade for a piece that finishes games for us, is going to be on the floor in Game 7 with 5 minutes left to beat the LA Clippers to get to the second round, and is going to be on the floor with 5 minutes left in Game 6 to beat the Phoenix Suns and get us to the conference finals. And is going to be on the floor in Game 7 to guard and deal with Klay Thompson, Draymond Green, and Steph Curry and get us to the NBA Finals, then it's not worth it. Unless that player's that player. Then the right move is to trade Joe Ingles, another contract, the Oklahoma City Thunder, reduce the restrictions on that pick, which sucks. That's the pain, to save $30 million and get out of the repeater tax and to save $30 million so that you have that money for future endeavors. It's $30 million. That's just sitting there burning a hole, giving you nothing right now. So in Oklahoma City does this deal, by the way, because they have to meet the salary cap floor and because they have cap space, so they can just do it. And this is the value they have, is to take that and do that. And then, if you can, you play the buyout market. Then hopefully somebody, gets released that you think can contribute minutes. Daniel House can contribute minutes. Some backup center that you're comfortable with gets released, gets a buyout, get him minutes. Some wing defender that you can throw out there for a second or two, gets you minutes. Whatever that might be. So I know it's boring, but be the smart one in the room if it happens. Be the one who goes, okay, makes sense. It's the right move. It's good. It's actually for the well-being of the future of the franchise, both financially, future moves down the road, flexibility moving forward. It's 100% the right move. Us being in the tax 2 years in a row is bad. Because if you go back in the tax next year, you're guaranteed to be a repeater 3 of the previous 4 years, right? Like that, once you've done it 3 years in a row, you're 3 and 4 too. So that's the case. Someone just said the ideal scenario is you get Kendrick Williams back in that. Sure, but Kendrick Williams has another value piece, right? So maybe you try to claim that by pulling the restrictions, it's that valuable that you deserve Kendrick Williams also. Sure, you probably maybe have to throw in a second-round draft pick. So that's the way. That's the boring move. By the way, I'll talk about this tomorrow because I was going to talk about it today, but we ran out. That trade happened. I'm getting asked the following question all the time, and I don't know how to answer it. And it's from Doris Burke or Mike Breen or people like, how are you guys? Like, are you good? Like, where are you? Like, no one. It's very funny. Everyone's waiting to see what we do in the playoffs because nothing we do in the regular season is valid to them. But the minute we've bobbled in the regular season, they're all like, huh, where are you? Kind of interesting. I don't know. Like, where do you think we are? That is Locked on Jazz today. Thanks very much. Kind of a random live show that goes everywhere with the trade happening during it. Thank you for the chat room for letting me know. I would have never known the trade happened. Wasn't the chat room. We just had our largest live audience we've had all season long. So thanks very much for tuning in. Appreciate it. Have a great day. Talk